think we have today, I want to talk about our finishing the book of Exodus, Sefer Shemot. And of course, we lift the Torah. And when we lift the Torah, we rise for those who can, and we call out Chazak, Chazak, Vinit Chazek. Chazak comes from the word Chazak, to be strong, to be strong, to be strong, and we, as a consequence, will be strengthened. Chazak, Chazak, the Nitchazek. Nitchazek is the passive reflexive. The result of Chazak, Chazak is we within ourselves, we are strengthened. Now, normatively, the way this is understood is the following. Chazak, in fact, my custom is to do this. When we recite the first Chazak, one looks to the right of the sanctuary of the Bet Knesset. Chazak, with your help, Chazak. And the second Chazak, Chazak, one looks at the other half of the sanctuary. And the consequence of the unity of the space, the unity of the place, and of course it's not the space and the place, but the people who are in that space, who are in the place, the consequence of coming together is that we are strengthened. It's an expression of joy that we have finished now the second book of Moses, and it's the great joy that we're ready to welcome Zalman, who's going to read the Haftorah this Shabbat, and going to read it beautifully, I know. Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. But I want to spend just a moment in talking about this concept of community. What does it mean, Chazak, Chazak, that with each of us as individuals, we are strengthened? Is our community a sum total of its parts? Let's say there are 300, 400, 500 people in the shul at that particular moment, or however many. Is our community the sum total of those hundreds of individuals? Is that it, or is it something more? So I'd like to share with you just a beautiful, beautiful paragraph from the writings of my teacher, Rabbi Yosef Ber Soloveitchik of blessed memory. And he wrote this in a work, in an article called The Community. So we'll make that as large as we can, and let's take a look at what he says. He writes, the community in Judaism is not just an assembly of people who work together for their mutual benefit. What is he saying? He's saying that it's not that the community is the sum total of its parts. It's something deeper, but a metaphysical entity and individuality. Now, this is his language. Sometimes his language could kind of be offsetting because it's sometimes dense and it's mystical and sometimes hard to connect to. But what he's saying is it's a metaphysical entity. What does it mean, metaphysical? Metaphysical means it's above the physical. If it's a physical, if there are 500 people, the group is the sum total of the 500 people. He's saying no, it's a sum total which is more than its parts. It's metaphysical. It's beyond the physical. Then he has this term, an individuality. Now, when we say individual, we normally think of us as individuals. He's now saying that the whole community can become an individual. Not an individual. He doesn't want to use that word. If we'll use that word, then that gets confusing. We are, each of us, an individual. But this group becomes an individuality. As he continues, I might say a living whole. In particular, Judaism has stressed the wholeness and the unity of Knesset Israel, the Jewish community. And then he writes, if we can point to where we're at, Shulz, thanks. The latter is not a conglomerate. It's not a conglomerate. What does a conglomerate mean? Of course, that's an aggregate. We're pulling together different parts and add them up. No, it is an autonomous entity endowed with a life of its own. In other words, it's an entity, it's an individuality. If I could face everyone just for a moment, Julie. Let's say there's a group of 500 people, and one person disappears. So we're a group of 499. Now, from a sociological perspective, what's the difference between 499 and 500? Not much of a difference. Not much of a difference. Okay. So the group is no longer the sum total of 500 people. It's the sum total of 499. No, is that so schlecht? Is that so bad? But according to Rabbi Soloveitchik, it's very different. The 500 is an individuality. So let's compare it for a moment, an individuality to an individual. Think about, for example, the individual. Let me offer an example of a tragic example. God willing, he'll come home, is Hirsch Poland. The last time Hirsch Poland, son of Rachel and John, they've done magnificently well advocating for their son. So he was, of course, kidnapped. And the last time, I believe, he was seen, he's being herded into some open Hamas truck by these Nazis. And his arm from his elbow down was blown off. Now, according to people who've seen that photograph, according to doctors, his life should be saved, God willing. Bezrat Hashem, he's okay, he should come home. But he doesn't have an arm anymore. No more. He's different. His whole entity is different. So if we are an individuality, if our community is an individuality, then if one person is missing, that individuality is completely metamorphosized. It's completely changed. It's different. Sociologically, no, as they say, 500, 499, what's so schlecht? You know, my sister, who's, as you know, has had such a profound effect on my life, Tova. So she recently published some short stories. And of course, she writes fiction, but she's a satirist, and she could get very funny taking ideas in life to its extreme. And in the end, she does that in order to teach, I think, very important lessons about life. And of course, she writes based on her own experiences. And she went to a Haredi school, and so she just thought of this Haredi rabbi, and he organizes that the whole school of 300 girls, young women, they go on a Lag BaOmer picnic, and suddenly one of the girls is missing. Okay, and it becomes a big story, and he becomes very close to the New York Times reporter who is reporting on the story, and his name is Sam, and of course the rabbi, as I would, immediately calls him Reb Shmuel and tries to get close to him. But the New York Times reporter is pushing hard, investigating. If there's a child missing, that means that you didn't take precautions. It means that you didn't have enough people who could accompany, who could escort the group, and so on and so forth. So in a very few funny line, so the rabbi turns to him, he says, listen, Shmuel, you're pretty good in math, 300. And if there's one person missing, it's 299. No, 299 from 300, it's like 99.8%. It's so bad. It's pretty good. Now, the way she writes it is much funny. I did it no justice whatsoever. It's actually quite funny when you read it. God forbid that should never be happening. It's all fiction. But as a little laugh, I found it funny. So from a sociological perspective, what's the difference? Obviously, there's a great difference because it's an individuality. It's a Knesset Yisrael. We think that in life, there is no person who is not, everyone is dispensable. Everyone's dispensable. What would the world be without me? No, it'll be. But what Rabbi Soloveitchik is saying is, yeah, no one is, I guess I would say in the reverse. Most people would say no one is, two negatives, no one is indispensable. He would write, no one is dispensable. Everyone is critical. Everyone is important. Let's continue looking at Rabbi Soloveitchik the way he says it. He writes, now I'm in the 6th line, the end of the 6th line. We, for instance, lay claim to the land of Israel. God granted the land to us as a gift. Now, he granted the land to the people of Israel. To whom did he pledge the land? Neither to an individual, nor to a partnership consisting of millions of people. No, he didn't just give it to millions of people who make up the whole. He gave it to the Knesset Israel. Is really a brilliant piece. To the community as an independent unity, as a distinct, juridic, metaphysical person. The whole of Israel is one individuality. He did not promise the land to me, to you, to them, nor did he promise the land to all of us together. Abraham did not receive the land as an individual, but as the father of a future nation. The owner of the promised land is the Knesset Israel, which is a community persona. He was a magician in framing terms, a community persona. Generally, we speak of an individual as a persona. I'm a persona. Estelle is a persona. Zalman is a persona. Each of us, Arnie, each of us is a persona. Now he's saying the community becomes a persona. However strange such a concept may appear to the empirical sociologist, for the sociologist, an individual, a whole group make up a whole. It is not at all strange experience for the halachis and the mystic to whom Knesset Israel is a living, loving, and suffering mother. Now, then I comment in the book called Holistic Prayer, it follows that if a person is missing from an assembly of people, it's hardly noticeable. That's what we were saying. If there's not 500 people, there's 499. The group is fundamentally the same, a conglomerate minus an individual. But if the community is a metaphysical entity, a missing person significantly alters the very essence of the group. As an individuality, each person plays an essential role in the makeup of the whole. As a family, every person plays a vital, irreplaceable part. No one is dispensable. Often in life, we would say everyone is dispensable. Am I going to be missed? No one is dispensable. Everyone in the makeup of the whole makes a contribution that if If the individual is not there, the very whole is fundamentally different. And if we look at it from that perspective, the chazak v'nitchazek is on another level. What we're really saying is chazak, looking to individuals, chazak, looking to individuals, v'nitchazek, and we together form, not a conglomerate. We together make up a community persona. We together become an individuality. It is a celebration, not just of our unity. Unity is a group of people coming together with all of our differences. We're together, and that's quite noble. We're saying it's the coming together of people with all of their differences to make an individuality. It's a celebration of the indispensability of every person in that group. Now, I want to just continue on and offer an alternative to chazak, v'nitchazek. Now, I'm not going to go through each of the 5 books, but I will touch upon the book of Genesis, which we finished a while ago, and now we're finishing Sefer Shemot. And when one looks at the end of those books, it's clear that the ending doesn't end with the end, if you will. Remember the old movies? Suddenly blaring in the middle of the screen, the end, tam v'nishlam. It's the end. It's the end. It's interesting that the term to end a tractate of Talmud is hadran. It's not sof, it's not the end. Hadran is a different kind of word. I'll come back to hadran, remind me. Hadran doesn't mean the end. As a matter of fact, if we look at the book of Genesis, and here, I think it was Ruby who pointed out I had done a misreading of the text of the embalming, that Yaakov was also embalmed. I forget exactly what my mistake was, but it was a mistake, Ruby, so thank you. But certainly Joseph, we're told that he's placed in a coffin. Look at the last sentence of the book of Exodus. It's Perek Nun, Pasuk Chaf Vav. He dies, he's embalmed, and he's placed in a coffin in Egypt, all the way at the end of chapter 50. And what does the text say? Let's read it. Vayamat Yosef ben Mea ve'eseh shanim. That in itself is really fascinating. Most people, when they die, it's biz 120. He died at 110. So did Joshua. It's almost like it was something not yet done. He was not yet completely finished. Vayachantu oto, and he was embalmed. Vayisen barom b'Mitzrayim, and placed in a coffin in Egypt. If I can face everyone, Shuli. So wait a minute. He's embalmed. He's placed in a coffin in Egypt. Oh, wait a minute. That's not the end of the story. The truth of the matter is, his bones were kept in that coffin, and it's only hundreds of years later, that his bones are carried, as we all know, out of Egypt. And ultimately, after leaving Egypt, and he's being traveled through the whole desert, and they get into Israel to Shechem, Elon Moreh, then he's buried. So when one thinks about it, chazak v'nit chazek leads to a very, at least when one reads the sentences, one is left with a very different understanding, because this event is left unfinished. It's to be concluded by ensuing generations. Well, let's think about the end of the book of Exodus. How does the book of Exodus end? The book of Exodus ends with, we're told, how to build the tabernacle. and what the priest's clothes will look like. And in the portions of Ayakal and Pikude, there is a delineation of precisely how we did what God commanded us to do. We've spoken about that in the past. It's not as if it just says we did as God commanded. Step by step, the Bible spells out. We did exactly what God tells us to do. But it's left in the book of Exodus. That is to say, it ends with the construction of the temple. It ends with the making of the garments, but it's left unused. It's unused. It served as an ultimate blueprint for how ultimately the Mishkan would be used, even in the desert. But in the book of Exodus, it's not yet used in the desert. And ultimately, it's a blueprint, not for the tabernacle. That was temporary. It serves as a blueprint for the Holy Temple, which was first constructed years later. So, in brief, the book of Exodus ends with the tabernacle just constructed, but the fulfillment of the use of the tabernacle has not yet occurred. Not only is it unused, but it serves as a blueprint for the ultimate house of God, the Holy Temple, that will only be built many, many years later. And that's the way it is in the book of Leviticus and in the book of Numbers. And most famously, it is the same in the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses dies before he enters into the land of Israel. It's almost like his story is incomplete. It's the last talk of the great Dr. Martin Luther King, the talk that he gave in Memphis, which I think was his best talk, and he gave many best talks, where he got up and he said, I can see the promised land. I may not get there with you. Longevity has its place. I may not get there with you, but you will get there. You'll be able to do what I couldn't do. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. So in the book of Leviticus and in the book of Numbers, which ends, by the way, with the laws of tithing and inheritance. Yeah, but these laws only come into play once we enter into the land of Israel. Leviticus, in that sense, it's not the end. It sets the stage for something which is yet to happen. So the book of Numbers. And Deuteronomy, as we've just said, concludes with the death of Moses. The irony of his life is that the greatest leader of our people never entered the land of Israel. That mission was left to the next generation. Now, if we can read from Torat Ahavah from page 151. I'd like to read the next few paragraphs with you, and then we'll open this up for a discussion. In the second paragraph of page 151, you're on 150, so it's the next page. An important lesson emerges from each of these 5 places in Torah. That is, from each of the 5 endings of the books. Often in life, we think that there is nothing we cannot accomplish. The culmination of each book teaches that none of us leaves the world fulfilling all of our hopes and expectations. This, in fact, may be the deeper meaning of the refrain. First, we proclaim, Chazak, Chazak, be strong, be strong. We turn to the right, we turn to the left, we turn forward, we turn back, and we say, let us each make sure that we do our share. But then we call out together the nitchazek. May we be strengthened in the belief that what we leave incomplete will be completed in the next generations. If I can face everyone for a moment, truly. It's different than our first interpretation. I would call the first chazak is horizontal. It talks about the present. It's horizontal. And we're saying chazak, and in the present, the nitchazek, we make up this individuality, this metaphysical entity, this community personal, to repeat the terms of Rabbi Soloveitchik. What we're suggesting is that chazak, the nitchazek, should not only be understood horizontally, but vertically. That is to say, it doesn't cancel out the first interpretation, but it says that we are part of what was and what will be. Chazak, be strong, and together v'nitchazek, precisely because we are convinced that what we as a whole will not be able to complete, the next generation, God willing, will be able to complete. No one can do it all. There's always space for another to do. And hence the next paragraph, which is one of my favorite paragraphs. It's a quote from Dr. Joan Fassler, whose husband Lenny became a very dear friend of mine, and ultimately of Rabbi Sarah, great supporter. And I was introduced to Lenny Ruby by Stanley, and Lenny, who's passed away, was a great, great friend. And his first wife was Joan Fassler, who was a magnificent academic, and she would write children's books. So let's look at this. This is a beautiful piece. In a children's book, we're on page 151 in Torat Ahavah, in a children's book written by Dr. Joan Fassler called My Grandpa Died Today. A young boy is especially close to his grandfather. They speak about everything. One day, the youngster remarks to his grandfather that he is getting old and asks him, as a child sometimes just asks whatever comes to mind, if he's afraid to die. Imagine, grandfather with a little child. The child has heard about death, dying. I hear those little kids talking that way sometimes. And so they're close. So this young child, 4-year-old, turns to the grandfather and says, "You're getting old. Are you afraid to die?" Now open your hearts. Placing his arm around the shoulders of the little one, the grandfather gently responds, "I'm not afraid to die because I know you're not afraid to live. I'm not afraid to die because I know you're not afraid to live." He's memorizing that. I'm not afraid to die because I know you're not afraid to live. So when we finish a holy book of the Torah, it should be a very powerful moment, not just standing and calling out those words. It should be internalized. I believe that should be a moment when children, young children, should be called into the synagogue. It's an intergenerational moment. It's not only a horizontal moment. And yes, that's a moment when chazak, that's a moment when we should appreciate our accomplishments. It's important to feel good about what we've what we've done in life is, you've heard me often say, the prayer that, thank you, God, for giving me the blessings that you've given me, and may my heart not be heavy with blessings I don't have. It's a good time, chazak, chazak, to appreciate our accomplishments. At the same time, if at all possible, if there are kids there, and there's so many kids at the bayit, we should hold our children close in the prayer that they continue to realize the mission of our people, the mission of the Torah, for ourselves, for the world. That's the nitchazek. The nitchazek is the hadran of the Talmud. Hadran doesn't mean end. Hadran, hadar, means beautiful, magnificent. Hadran means to return, to return. And it's return in the sense not to return to me, to return it to the next generation. You think you finished the tractate of Talmud? Yeah, it's left unfinished. There's always more to learn, more to think about that piece. I love that line. When the grandfather asked, are you afraid to die? He says, I'm not afraid to die because I know you're not afraid to live. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. V'nitchazek into the next generation. And if anything, I think this war has made me feel better about the next generation. I know that there's a strong segment of Jews who just don't get it, but it's a small segment. As a general rule, my feeling is, and it's certainly the case in Israel, look at our grandchildren, and it's like all the grandchildren there. They want to serve. They want to give. We're very proud of them, very proud of that next generation. They're doing, I know for me personally, what I never did, never will be able to do. It's very humbling. And I see this here too. It's not simple to be on campus when all that's going on is going on. But by and large, the youngsters have come out and they've been strong. And if anything, what's occurred has reminded those who on their own perhaps wish to forget that they were Jewish. They've been reminded that whether they like it or not, they are Jewish, and they've responded. They've responded well. It's almost, I feel echoes of the Soviet Jewry movement in what's happening today. And so with all of the darkness, this is a remarkable time. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. I'm not afraid to die because I know you're not afraid to live in the future. God willing is wonderful for our people and for our land. We'll stop here and we'll take everyone's thoughts and comments.
May I, Rav Avi?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This week, I was grateful to our friend Bert Nussbacher, who I learned with, and he pointed out an article about the special friendship between my friend Dita, mother of Avi Natan Or, and she's a dosi, she calls herself, religious, and she has become very good friends with a secular mother of a hostage. Her name is Meirav Leshem Gonen, mother of Romy, also a hostage, and they became. So when you're talking about chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek, whenever I daven, I always pray that Hashem should bless Dita, my friend, with chizuk, with strength to be able to withstand what she's going through during her son's being a hostage in Gaza. But now, through the bond between herself and her newfound friend, Meirav, through the difficulty, they're together, mitchazkim. They're strengthening each other.
Yeah, I do want you to know, Judy, that at a rally held on Friday, Elaine may have been there. Were you there Friday at that rally, Elaine? Or Sunday? At that rally, I mentioned Noah and Avinatan, and I offered the prayer of before Shabbat, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, that they both return and soon marry. As we know, they wanted so much. They wanted so much to marry. Anybody else have any thoughts? Estelle, any thoughts? Vivian, Ruby, Anne?
Sorry, let me take a look and see who has a hand up because I couldn't see. Wait, so anyone who wants to say something, put up your hand so I can see. I see Estelle. Estelle is muted. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, Beverly Fetman is on.
Oh, wow.
Bev.
Hi,
Yeah,
Bev.
I just wanted to say, at the beginning, I thought you were just speaking about the Jewish people, but when you talk about dying and living, this is one of the reasons I noticed that non-Jews and also the Sephardic Jews believe in naming one generation after the previous generation. And is that one of the ways they're saying of keeping yourself alive or keeping the next generation alive because of naming the child?
I think so. And the Ashkenazim do it after the person has died. If I had my way, I like the idea of somebody being named while the person is still alive.
Well, as a matter of
I
fact,
like that very much.
When my first granddaughter was born, my daughter-in-law's mother wanted her named after her, and my daughter-in-law said, "Great," and Jonathan said, "Over my dead body," because for obvious reasons, a different culture. But so wouldn't it be better to be able to name after the living so that the living would know that the will is coming up?
Yeah, I would agree with you, but I'm in enough trouble already, Estelle. So I'm going to leave that battle to someone else.
All right, I was going to suggest that you get into it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, why not?
Let's see if Bev can unmute just so you can say hi to her.
Hi, Bev.
I don't know if you'll be able to. Okay, she's waving. We just can't. You're muted, so we can't hear you, but it's so nice to see you.
And I want to wish Zalman also a refuah shlema.
Oh, there we are, Bev. You unmuted.
Right.
We can hear you now.
It's good to be back. It's good to be on this side of the line and not on the other. And appreciate very much the visits. And still have a word or two to say to you, Rabbi. So when you have a chance, I thought a lot about what we spoke, and I realized that I forgot something very important.
Okay. I'll be sure to be in touch with God's help.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, yeah, that's my Bev. Always looking to make a difference. Always.
Fighting back.
Right.
Gotta do it. Well, why else are we here?
Right.
Bev, you're back at home?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Baruch haba.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be home.
Thank God.
Why else are we here?
Right.
So
hi.
I bet that.
Hi.
Ruby,
this is Bert. When you get a chance, put me in line, please.
Hi, Ruby.
Okay,
Ruby, did you know Joan?
Wait.
Did you know Joan Fassler, Lenny's wife?
Oh, yes, I knew them both very well.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
She was a great lady.
Yes.
She was something.
Yes.
She really touched my life. She taught at, I think she taught at Yale.
I don't remember, but she was a special lady, yes.
Lenny was the kind of guy, I would sit with him for a half hour and he'd keep answering his phone. And I would say to him when we were through, Lenny, how many businesses did you close and start in the last 30 minutes? He was really, oh, what a beautiful man he was. Great guy. Good.
I'm
So-
wondering, Arnie, did you want to say something?
Um,
And
yeah,
then Bert.
I just had a thought that this being the end of the book of Exodus, Chazak is strong, but Chazak is also, I think, Pharaoh's heart.
Yes.
So the two Chazaks could be strong, but also don't be too strong. You know, don't be so strong that your heart becomes stubborn in your ways.
It's beautiful. Arnie, why didn't you tell me this before I wrote this piece? That is a beautiful thought. My
Be
Arnie.
next book.
Arnie, that's a beautiful thought. Whoa, I like that.
Mm.
Debbie Shep-Nachas.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thought, Arnie. That's a
I
beautiful
think
thought.
Bert is waiting next, and then Vivian.
Yes.
Bert, and then Vivian.
Yeah,
Thank
hi.
you,
Along
Arnie.
those, hi, Rabbi Weiss.
Hi, Bert. How you
Along
doing?
the same, hi, along the same lines of being a corporate whole and as part of individuals, I've heard that the Tzibur is defined as tzaddikim, beinanim, urushaim, and so
Right.
that you have, righteous people, middle people, and not so wonderful people, rishayim,
Right.
and it's all necessary to be part of a tzibur, a congregation.
Yeah. I would just add, they say about Shlomo Carlebach that he had a shul on 79th Street. A lot of, and people, he was a very, very, very charismatic figure, very creative. He had big influence on my life. And so he would always say, we'd say, who's in his shul? He says, well, half of my shul are psychiatrists and the other half are their patients. So everybody would laugh. And then he would say, okay, half of my shul are psychiatrists and half of their patients, and I don't know who's who. I don't know who's who. And when you say that, Bert, Tzibur is Tzadikim, Beinonim, Rishayim. Yeah, but I don't know who's who. I don't
Right.
know
Well,
who's who.
I agree with you on that, but
I remember once I was at
some
a,
people would say in certain circumstances that you exclude people who are not, tzaddikim, whoever they are, but it's necessary to have everybody.
yes, Litpalelim ha'avaryanim, anu matirim. Well, I remember once having a conversation with Moshe David Tend of blessed memory, who was, I really looked up to him. But he used to leave me messages. One day I'll play you a message he left me because he wasn't sure about the women's issue. He would say to me things like, Avi, do tshuva, which means repent. I love you still. You're crazy, but I still love you. He would say things like that. Do I have him? I may have him on my, I may. Anyway, I was saying that I was arguing that basically everybody has to be made welcome. And he said to me, well, for you, Avi, there's no such thing as a wicked person or a righteous person. And I said to him, I'm sure there is, but I'll let God decide who's who. I'm not going to decide who's who. Let me see if I can find it because it's really funny to hear him. For those, here it is. I actually kept this message. This is from a while ago. Here he is.
I should tell you here. Please excuse me. I checking my phone directory on the cell phone. I got Abby Weiss. I wanted Abby Weiss, WEITC. The problem is that's editing that the Sefer. Anyway, it's not the Yad Hashem. But let you know that even though I think you're off the wall, I love you anyway. Yeah, cold too.
I don't know if you heard that, but his language was, even though you're off the wall, I love you anyway. Yep.
Is that where you got your idea from? That you love him anyway?
Yeah, it's all right. I took that as a compliment. Big compliment.
Vivian is next. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was thinking about how this is introduced. You have Chazak, both of them in the individual. So we are warned as individuals that we must be strong. But then it's followed by the Nitchazek, and that's in the plural. And you've got to reconsider if your Chazak does not agree with the Nitchazek, with the plural, if it's not good for the future of the community, of everybody, then you have to reconsider your own personal chazak and think about what's going on with the community and how that will affect them. And it may require you to change your approach to chazak.
Yes. Good. I'm going to say to everyone, thank you, Vivian. A good day to everybody. And just
Rabbi,
yes,
Rabbi,
yes, Ruth, yes.
I just want to tell you that Zalman Stewart Olson was transferred to the hospital this morning. He's at Allen Hospital. Oh, you know that. Okay.
I just saw, yeah, do you know which hospital?
Allen Hospital.
Uh-huh.
Allen, right down the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. He had
He's
chest.
a very sweet man, but he's very much alone now.
Very much. Yes.
Very much alone.
So the other Rebbe are familiar that he's in the hospital now? Everybody knows?
Now they're gonna know, Ruth.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
God
I just told
you're
them.
reminding
Thank
us.
you. They probably knew already, but yeah.
Okay, because he called me to tell me. Okay.
Right. And by the way, if anyone hears that somebody is not well or hospitalized, if you could let us know, let Julie know that you know it's something that is so important to us. That's what's most important, that we all try to be there for each other.
Thank you. And Joyce is also now, her family, is talking about, she's at Chervier in the rehab. So if anyone could visit her, that would be lovely as well.
Who's that?
Joyce Marcus is now at Chervier.
And she's at Chervier too?
Yes, she got there Friday.
How long has she been? Oh, Friday.
Friday, yeah. So if anyone
Chervier actually is, I was over there and it actually looks much better. It used to, they were always they're a very good facility. And so does Methodist do well. But I think they've upgraded the facility itself, which makes a difference. Much more appealing. I think the physical plan.
Yeah.
Ruby, continue having fun down there. Give the rabbi my best. You know, I have only good feelings towards him. All my blessings. Take care, everybody.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Beverly.